Hey guys, good evening. So I want to talk about gratitude and appreciation. I know I've been talking about this in my other videos to some degree, but I want to expand off the subject. In particular, since my last video I talked about blame and shame, and there's a correlation that I want to connect here, and also introduce a natural way to look at your life in which can reorient how you see your already taking place experience, and hopefully in a more positive way. So, for some people, gratitude and appreciation is just natural. It just kind of is there. They have a little bit of just appreciation of some of the basic things in their life, and it fulfills them in the background somehow. Like it's just part of their life. They're maybe happy about just having a job, or um, a girlfriend, or food on the table. Just very basic things. There's just things that they can appreciate, to give thanks to, whether it's directly or maybe they have a prayer that they give and they thank God for what they have. But it's a form of appreciation. And for others, and I was one of these that fell into this category, it was always something that felt like I was forced to do. And it seems like, from my observation, there is a certain degree of like blame and shame, or more so shaming, about being grateful. Like that, I think turns off a lot of people to the concept of like being grateful. I think Brene Brown has even mentioned this too. She talks a lot about blame and shame. So basically, like people are brought up with this idea of like, oh, you should be grateful for what you have. How dare you that you're not? Um, you should uh, be grateful for your father for how he works so hard for you. Um, how dare you do that when you know there are people in other countries who don't have it as good as you. And I mean, there's a partial truth to it, but it's taught or forced on us in a way that is like so heavy. It's like because it's so heavy and aggressive and like shaming, it closes us off. And in that closing off, we close off to a natural kind of heart that we have as human beings, a natural gratitude that I think is there, that can express itself organically, but the way in which we're trying to like teach people about it, particularly people who go through this, and I think there's a lot of you out there, um, it just turns us off to the idea of like being grateful, or shuts our heart off from the natural gratitude that we can experience. And that's something you just have to look into the nature of. Like you have to really look into it. Is this true for me? And in the investigation, you may find that there's some truth, and that may be painful, and you may have to make a decision whether or not you want to remain that way. In so doing, you can open up your heart more, to perhaps a natural gratitude that will arise in this recognition. Um, the other part I wanted to share, which really helped reorient my ability to feel gratitude or just let gratitude arise, because some of it started off as something that I had to actually uh, do deliberately. I remember I was watching Tony Robbins, and he was talking about how he wakes up every day and he meditates 10 to 30 minutes in a way that he's just deliberately um, being grateful for something, or three things. Usually it's his family and two other things, maybe his good health and fortune and something else. But he deliberately focuses on that and the sensation, and he just goes over like the fact that it's there. Um, and he deliberately puts effort and energy into this recognition. And I've heard other people talk about how maybe before you go to bed, really count the things that you are grateful for, or focus on one thing that it was and why you are grateful for, or something like great that happened that day. Like these are deliberate practices that create their own momentum, and then once you have that going, I believe you can then dip into a natural occurrence of it. Because I think the heart really wants to express its gratitude naturally, but because of conditioning and the kind of blame shaming, um, or whatever kind of like traumas we've had, it just closes off the heart from this natural potential. So getting back to the thing that helped me the most, I mean, those things I just mentioned influenced, and there were steps, but then there was still a part of my brain or me that was just like, it feels so forced, it feels so fake. I don't want to be fake. And something kind of arose in me where I could see something that I knew once it manifested, I knew it would connect with other people. So here it is. So that was very long-winded. Sorry, I get that way. So if you're really, really honest, and you've had some experience in life, and you look around, and you have some imagination too, maybe you can kind of envision how bad it can get. Like, it doesn't take too much to realize that there's some pretty horrific life situations, circumstances, potential ways of like being a human being that are pretty bad. Like the slavery still exists, sex slavery still exists. Um, Probably being tortured in some way. Um, Really abusive uh, living situations that you really can't find yourself out of, that just really have an effect on your brain, or perhaps traumatize you for that period of time, or perhaps you're traumatized for the rest of your life. I don't know. But like, there's some really horrific situations that we can easily see. And I can imagine there's even worse situations of discomfort that are out there. I mean, I've heard of like certain illnesses that are very super rare, that like the person's just in constant pain all the time. Like, those are really bad circumstances. And if you're honest, you're probably not at that. Like, that is not where you're at. So when I saw that, I was like, well, that alone is something to be grateful for. Like, even though I can't appreciate what I have, I can appreciate the fact that it's not that bad. And I was like, oh wow, I actually feel a lot better instantly. Like, it was a form of gratitude which came in this comparison. So, because for most of us, I imagine you're watching this video, so you probably have a phone or a computer. If you're watching on a computer, you probably have some sort of shelter. You probably have some heat and some food. You probably have a job to provide those things, or somebody who supports you, which are all things to be thankful for. Uh, and in comparison to how bad it can get, it's something to be grateful for. And this is something I kept coming back to. I still come back to when things get really heavy, or the mind is really strong and like making me feel like my situation is somehow uh, unfortunate. It's like, oh no. In comparison to the universal capacity for hell, which I would say like torture, sex slavery, slavery, is pretty high up there. But I'm sure there's even a decibel beyond that that is just horrific. My life is not that. It's like, oh, thank God. Thank God. Instantly connect with my heart, instantly feeling gratitude and appreciation for what is. And even if it's that moment of like, oh, this is kind of rough, I don't really like this, it's tough, it just instantly reorients the experience to one that is objectively the same, but internally it's completely, radically much more light and wholesome. There was something else I wanted to add to this, but I think that's enough because I can't remember the other thing, and I don't want to redo this video. So that's something I hope you guys take to heart. And like I said, you'll have to keep coming back to it. Maybe it won't work for you. Maybe some of the other things I mentioned, like Tony Robbins, or just visualizing something that or coming back to, like being thankful for something that happened during that day. But will work for you. Um, but yeah, it's a big thing, gratitude. I think if you've watched my other videos or my last video on suffering, yeah, it wasn't until I really let in being grateful that I could appreciate any of the spiritual benefits I was reaping through meditation, through self-inquiry. It wasn't until I could appreciate my life, the subtleties, and the facts that these things were changing, rather than focusing on what I didn't have, that I was able to find balance and happiness. So I'm rambling now. I hope you got something out of this, and I hope you have a good night. All right, take care. Bye bye.